everyone. Welcome to Kids Corner. Happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are all doing good. Today we're going to talk about a young boy who shows a lot of courage in the midst of a pretty scary situation. Today's story is David and Goliath. So I'll set the scene for you first. There are these two hills, and on one hill is the Israelite army camp, and on the other hill there is the Philistine army camp. And the Philistines are challenging the Israelites. And between these two hills where the encampments are is the Valley of Elah. So instead of having the entire armies fight one another, they've decided that each group is going to send out one person, and those two people will fight, and then that winner will determine the winner of the entire battle. So the Philistines have sent out a man named Goliath. He is gigantic, think 17 feet tall and just huge. And so Goliath comes walking out into the middle of the valley and says, "All right, here I am, who's going to challenge me?" And the Israelites all run and hide in fear. None of them want to fight this guy Goliath. So every day for 40 days, Goliath comes out into the middle of the valley and challenges the Israelites, saying, "Who's going to come out and fight me?" And none of them are willing to do it. Well, one day, a man named Jesse has some older sons who are in the Israelite army, and he sends out his youngest son, David, who's just a young boy at that time. And David's typical job is to shepherd some sheep in a flock. Not even that many sheep. He just kind of is in charge of a small amount of sheep. And Jesse tells David, "I want you to go and take some supplies to your older brothers on the front lines." So David puts the sheep that he is in charge of in care of another shepherd and takes the supplies to the army camp. And when he gets there, he sees this Philistine, Goliath, out in the middle of the valley challenging everyone, and he sees nobody stepping up. And so he starts to ask around, what's going on with this guy? Why is he out there? And some of the men explain to him what's happening, and then his older brother overhears what he's doing, the conversation that he's having. So I'm going to read you a snippet of what happens from there. So David has just found out that the Philistine Goliath has challenged the Israelites for 40 days and none of them are willing to step up. And now David is like, well, I could do something. So let's see what happens. This is from 1 Samuel 17, starting in verse 28, and I will read through verse 33. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle." "Now what have I done?" said David. "Can't I even speak?" He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You were not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You're only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." So David sees that no one else is willing, and he has a willing heart. He is willing to fight this Philistine. And Saul, the guy in charge, says, "I don't think you can do it." But David kind of makes the case for himself. He talks about how in his days shepherding, he's had to fight off lions and bears and wolves, and he's been tough. He's been in battle before, just not maybe with a person. And Saul says, "Well, I guess if you want to give it a shot, man, you can go for it." So he puts on a whole coat of armor, gives him a big old sword strapped to his back, and David's standing there head to toe in chainmail thinking like, no, I can't do this. This is not what I'm comfortable in. This isn't what I'm used to. I've never worn anything like this before, and I've certainly never fought with a big old sword. So he takes it all off, and he says, "Here's what I'm going to do." He pulls out his slingshot, and he stoops down, and he picks up 5 smooth stones. And that's what he's carrying into battle, because that is where his gifting lies. He is good at using that slingshot, and he knows it. And he is capable with those stones. So he takes what God has given him goodness and skills in and brings that into battle rather than trying to wear somebody else's armor. So he takes a slingshot, and the very first stone he fires off hits Goliath square between the eyes, and David has won. He won because he used his own skills. He used things that he was good at and the gifts that God had given him, rather than trying to do something that somebody else wanted him to do or do something the way that somebody else might have done it. So the lesson for us in this story is not only the courage that David has to step up and to stand against this Philistine, but it's also the fact that he did it by using the gifts that God had given him, his own skills, the things that he was good at. And that's something that we can all learn from. We all have things that we're good at. We have gifts that God has given us and talents and things that we enjoy doing and all kinds of stuff like that, things that we can create that we are good at, that we are able to use to combat the things of this world that maybe aren't so bright and maybe aren't so good. So I know a lot of people recently with this pandemic going on have been sewing masks. I am not a sewer. I can't sew. What I can do is bake. So I've been baking a lot and sharing some of my baked goods with other people. And what I can also do is reach out to friends and make sure that people are doing okay and check in with my loved ones. And one of the things that I've loved when I'm going for walks around the neighborhood or out on runs is seeing beautifully sidewalked driveways beautifully chalked sidewalks and driveways, and all the pretty pictures that people hang in their windows. There's some things that I've seen where people are like doing stained glass doors where you tape up all the different lines and then paint different colors in the different shapes on the doors. That's so cool. I bet you guys would be great at drawing some awesome art on your driveway or a sidewalk with some chalk, or painting a pretty picture to hang on your window for people to see as they drive past. That kind of thing really brightens people's days. So we all have skills and gifts and abilities and ways that we can bring God's goodness and joy into the world today. So that's my challenge for you today, is to find a way that you can brighten somebody else's day using the gifts and the skills that God's given you. All right, guys, have a great one. Bye.